All right, folks, it is August 21st, 2025, and I have a quick XRP market update. I apologize for not bringing you our regular show at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're starting 1 hour late, and that is because I had an unexpected power outage at my house here this evening. I guess that there might have been some construction going on or something, because there's no storms happening up here in the Pacific Northwest. But I was out of power, out of internet, and so I took the family out to dinner. We went to an old school burger joint, drive up burger joint. We really like the place. That's called Boomers, and they got the Boomer Burger. So I had a couple of Boomer Burgers, and we are back here and helped get the kids bathed up. And now I wanted to come up to the office here and get a quick update out because we have pulled back. And, I'm a little bit concerned that we might see one more little pullback here. But in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about short-term price action that has us losing absolutely zero conviction on where XRP goes, even in the near future, even over the next couple weeks, even over the next couple months. And as I've been explaining in some of my other updates, I think that this is going to be a life-changing opportunity for those who are prepared. It's why I titled my episode earlier today a very simple one, XRP Prepare Now, because we're just going to get straight to the point with it, guys. This is going to move. XRP and the altcoins. I know it's frustrating. I took a screenshot and I'm going to make a little TikTok tomorrow with the little green screen video, showing a comment. And it just blows me away that people are leaving and they're just ignoring simple math, selling their XRP, giving up on XRP and or other altcoins, giving up on crypto right before we get ETFs going live. It's simple math. It's following history. We have historical price action leading up to the Bitcoin ETFs, leading up to the Ethereum ETFs. We have price action to the downside after the ETFs going live. So I like to warn you guys when I see it moving up. We also like to warn when we see it going down. But from a fundamental standpoint, obviously, if you're not trading, day trading, or swing trading, you can sit back. And the reason why I want to keep you up to date is so that you can accumulate at better prices potentially. I'm not here to give anybody financial advice, but if I see a storm coming, we're going to let you know. And what we see here is most of this price action to the downside is basically already pricing in anything that Jerome Powell could say tomorrow. I mean, there's really not much he could say tomorrow that's going to absolutely shock the markets. He doesn't have the you-know-what to raise rates, and to really stick it to us. And there's actually a case to be made that that's what it would take to actually beat inflation. But obviously our business cycle can't handle it. Our real estate market can't handle it. And in the market is already pricing in 57%. Now, this was up at 100% chance odds for September rate cuts. And then it went back to 90% after the PPI inflation. That's the producer price index came in way too hot. Now, speaking of getting predictions wrong, weathermen and economists, boy, they can miss repeatedly, right? And I miss by a little bit on my target, and folks come out of the woodworks to tell us we're the worst ever. It's pretty funny because I think that we've been pretty good on the margin, right? And as far as the direction. And what we see here is that, we've been calling that there wasn't going to be rate cuts. I've been saying, no, I don't think that the Fed's going to do it. I think that they're going to stick it to President Trump. And folks want to talk about, the tariffs are caused because, Trump brought about these tariffs, so there's still going to be inflation, so he can't cut rates. People want to blame the Fed and say it's the Fed's fault. What we want to understand, left, right, up, down, Powell, Trump, how is it going to impact our portfolios, and what are they actually going to do? The other thing that you have to relate back to is the narratives. Because even though I knew and expected that there wouldn't be a rate cut, now, obviously, I could be wrong. They could cut rates, and I'll be happy to admit that I got that call wrong, too. I'd be happy to do so. I don't think that we will. I think that we're going to leave rates unchanged. But the market doesn't believe that. The market was believing 100% odds that we were going to cut rates, and so we started to rally. The market's going to realize that the ETFs are coming for XRP and these altcoins over the next 2 months, and we're going to start to rally. We have Clarity Act that's set to be on President Trump's desk by Thanksgiving or Christmas, according to Senator Cynthia Lummis. We're going to rally in the meantime. And I could list off fundamental reasons that take us all the way out till May of next year where I'm hearing that it is likely that we would have 4 out of 7 Fed governor positions nominated by Trump. This includes a new Fed chairman by May of next year. That's when Powell's term is officially up. So he could choose to fire and get rid of Powell or dismantle the Fed in the meantime. But if it goes as expected and we don't change anything, President Trump still gets to elect a few more governors. And you just saw the Department of Justice is now suggesting that the Federal Reserve make her resign, fire Cook, Governor Cook, and they're ready to charge her for mortgage fraud. And I was listening to the FHA director, Bill Pulte, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Bill, listening to him explain. And the mainstream media didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to acknowledge that, a Federal Reserve Board governor could be committing mortgage fraud. And he outlined, no, it doesn't matter that this is a Fed Board governor. We're going after politicians. We're going after anybody who's committing mortgage fraud, right? This isn't left-right politics. This is breaking the law. And Bill, rightfully so, calling out the mainstream media for not being willing to call this out. It's absolutely political, the Federal Reserve. It absolutely is the mechanism, one of many, that they use to control our monetary policy and, by extension, an agenda that they've been pushing for. I mean, to say that they're not political, but yet here they are talking about climate change and other silly things that should not be on the agenda, when it comes to determining monetary policy. But it's an absolute joke. They try to tell us it's not political as they cut rates in September. And then to finish off the year, they gave 3 rate cuts as we have an election. Oh, our guy didn't get in. Now we're going to stick it to President Trump. And the tough part, I've been calling this out, is that the Trump economy, if we want to call it that, sure, it's coming back and you're seeing some, big cap X, expenditures and investments in this country, a record amount of data centers being built out, a record amount of deals getting done here, trade deals and investments into our country, sure. But Main Street is still struggling and inflation's not going away. And we've been saying that even if the Fed does cut rates, it's not going to provide relief to the real estate market because the bond market's already been given a big middle finger to the Fed. The Fed affects short-term rates, overnight rates. And then it's the bond market, which is going to determine the 10-year yield. And that's where the mortgage rates are going to be based off of. And so we've been saying that, despite a rate cut or two, it's not going to fix our economy. It's not going to save or bring back roaring demand for real estate. The only thing that's going to do that is prices. Or if interest rates were to, go back down to 2 or 3% on your mortgage, which very unlikely. I mean, obviously we could see an alien invasion or something dramatic like that that could lead to interest rates going back to 0. But we've been warning that rates stay higher for longer. Inflation doesn't go away anytime soon. It's going to be tough to earn your way out of this one. And we do encourage making as much money as possible, obviously. But you got to have the right investments. And for the folks that already got a bag, already got some net worth, already are invested in the stock market, we've seen years like the 3rd worst year ever for the 60-40 portfolio. Now the suits are lining up to sell you the products. And I was joking about this with my barber today. And we were saying how I was talking about the ETFs, and what drives XRP and some of these altcoins higher. And I was saying that the suits are already lining up to do a bonk coin ETF. They'll do a Trump coin ETF. And we were joking back and forth about how as soon as the suits are ready to sell it to you, then it's okay to be a degen and buy the bonk coin. Nothing against the bonk coin. If you're one of the bonk bros, God bless you. Pump it up and have some fun. But it's just funny, right? Now that the suits are ready to sell you bonk coin, okay, now we can get you hooked up on a meme coin. We find that funny. So all of this to say, no panic. Absolutely no panic. This is why we just been preaching about keeping a little extra cash, a little extra liquidity and margin on the sideline. It's easier said than done. I understand that. And I do have sympathy for the folks that are running out of time, very frustrated. Bills are coming due. I mean, we saw the Biden administration tried to say that they were going to be able to forgive student loan debt. That wasn't the case. Supreme Court shut that down. And so now the bills are due on student loan. It's $1 trillion ticking time bomb. We see that there's $7 trillion at least in short-term treasuries that are due by the end of this year. We got to find buyers, which is why we finally did get the Genius Act passed, and that's going to help address that. but we're going to need to really flip that switch and push that lever up quickly. As far as stablecoin adoption, the 2 to 3 trillion that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentions, I think, is a good start. But like I said, we have 7 trillion due this year. Foreign buyers aren't showing up, and so the Treasury is having quite an issue selling off these bonds. There's there's a lack of buyers. Okay, so this is where I want folks to understand, though, that you got to price in narratives, or understand narratives being priced in. You got to understand events, whether you're a trader or you're just looking to accumulate. This is why I like to keep my thumb on the pulse of where the markets are going, in which direction. Are we here to, time every bottom and hit every top? We're not going to do that. That's, not what we expect to do, but we expect to hit the margin. And in that margin, there's plenty of money to be made. And so this is what I wanted to break down here in tonight's update. I appreciate everybody for stopping by here. Let's get into it real quick. We got President Trump making a televised announcement from the Oval Office tomorrow, Friday, at noon Eastern. Let me know in the comments down below what you think that might be. Moving on over, Texas to move toward eliminating property taxes, according to State Representative Brian Harrison. So you're starting to see a trend here, making gold and silver legal tender at the state level, removing property taxes. Some states moving backwards, like my state implementing capital gains tax. Thankfully we don't have an income tax, but my state is, trending towards tax the rich, do what we can to remove all wealth from our state and all common sense from our state. And so if you make over 250,000 capital gains tax, we're going to hit you with a 7%, capital gains tax on top of your federal capital gains tax as well. So some states are going to be moving backwards, others are moving into the future. And I think that this is where we have to align ourselves, potentially strategically relocate. And even if we don't physically relocate, we may have to move our assets around. This is something that I'm going to be talking about with Mark Kohler's law firm as I set up my entities. Now, we do have a sad story here. Victim losing 783 Bitcoin worth $91 million in a social engineering scam impersonating exchange and wallet support. Stolen funds are being laundered via Wasabi, per Zach XBT. Now, people have been asking me about this, and obviously it's so sad to see so many people have been scammed and fallen for stuff like this. I will put out my disclaimer. I'm never going to DM you. I don't do DMs. I don't do trading. I don't do wallets. I don't do anything. If you're in my Discord, you can get a hold of me. Otherwise, you got to go through my website. It's the only place, okay? So I'm not reaching out on TikTok, YouTube, X. I wish that I could. I wish I could spend all day DMing with everybody. Out of security reasons, you will never get a DM from me, okay? I'll never ask for crypto. I'll never direct you to move crypto. Watch out, okay? And the XRP community, by the way, is going to be under attack more so than other communities because we have a lot of money behind us and our demographics skew older and people that aren't as savvy with the technology and all this. But I wanted to bring this up tonight to just say, where I stand on this is if you have the ability and trust yourself and have some serious security measures in place, you can do self-custody, you can do cold storage. I have a combination of cold storage, hot wallets, institutional grade custody at Caleb & Brown. I keep some crypto on Coinbase. That's where I'm making some trades, doing my futures. I still have altcoins and some XRP on Uphold. And so I have multiple exchanges, multiple cold wallets, multiple hot wallets, multiple banks. Okay. I got cash. I got physical silver. I give myself options when it comes to everything. I just want to make sure that I stay liquid, stay ready. And this is having, liquidity and options. And it's also having the ability to, see who's going to be the best provider when it comes to crypto trading, custody, and services. I don't know anybody else in the business right now that's offering free institutional grade custody. And so for folks who don't feel comfortable with cold storage and wallets, I can't recommend Caleb & Brown enough. I wish that there was more solutions like this in Canada, UK, New York. Unfortunately, those jurisdictions are not serviced by Caleb & Brown, but you need to get with somebody who's going to help you out. Uphold has the Vault product. There's others as well too. I just spoke with Gemini, really excited for the MasterCard credit card that they're going to be rolling out that allows you to earn XRP or whatever crypto you want. That's going to be really cool to see and to try out for myself too. That's going to be going live on August 25th. And so I just met with their team today, I'm going to be setting up my account and expecting to get my card maybe next week sometime And maybe next time I take the family out to dinner or something, I'll try it out and show you guys how it works out. But I'm really excited because, I was telling this with Gemini, as I said, I'm just so excited to see more people coming to service the XRP community. And that's what it's about. Between you, the audience, our community, me, and the platforms. For me, I'm just here to, ask questions, figure out what the offerings are, provide clarity on all of the services and products, and bring that to you guys and allow you to make an informed decision, whether you're using a platform that I like or a platform that I don't like. I just want you guys to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I do see some ugly out there, and I try to be as nice and respectful as possible when I call out the ugly, but you guys know what I've been saying. Everybody and their brother's coming for your XRP, and you're seeing it, right? XRP credit cards, XRP debit cards, XRP direct deposit, Uphold doing some new programs there. Flare, someday Flare will get their act together and we'll go live with F assets, right? A lot of people coming to service the XRP family, and it's going to be good because he who has the gold makes the rules. We have the gold. So it's only going to be up to what we allow the community to tolerate from these service providers. And I think that that's why you're seeing such good deals coming our way. Free institutional grade custody from Caleb and Brown. This credit card from Gemini is going to be interesting. And when you can mix all of this together into your everyday spending and where you're already going to be spending money, how you're already living in managing your finances, like the direct deposit program on Uphold. I don't even use some of these things, but for the right person, I mean, it's a great deal. Absolutely. Now, as I was saying, what we're looking at here is the market adjusting. I was not expecting a rate cut in September, but the market was. And so we pumped up until we got PPI last week. Inflation for wholesalers way too hot. So then we get more statements from the Fed saying that we're not going to be cutting, right? The minutes came out yesterday, said that they're more worried about inflation than the business cycle and labor market. Okay, so they're willing to sacrifice Main Street labor market and jobs to, fight off inflation. That's what that means. Now, either way, Main Street, Middle America, and the bottom is going to be getting squeezed. Either way. Do we sacrifice the labor market, job market, or do we sacrifice inflation? Either way, it's not very good. The trend is not your friend unless you're being very proactive in how you're making your money and how you're investing your money. So we're given time here for the market to catch up. Now the odds of the Fed lowering interest rates in September fall to 57%, according to Polymarket. And this is something that it took some time for me to understand, right? Is that the rest of the market, some of these people aren't as ahead. The broader market, the masses as a whole, they're not as early as we are sometimes, right? Now, this is Coin Bureau, and this, I'm making my point right now. If Powell doesn't announce any rate cut tomorrow, he's posting this meme of Jerome Powell. If we don't get a rate cut tomorrow, or he doesn't announce that they're going to cut rates, it's going to be red. Well, my friend, it's already been red. It's already been very red. And at the same time, August is historically a month of consolidation. If you look back on Bitcoin's history, on average, I think that August is the only month where Bitcoin actually averages a negative return. Every other month, it averages a positive return. It's just August is a typical slowdown cycle for Bitcoin and the broader financial markets because, these guys, registered investment advisors, hedge funds, big money managers, these guys, are on vacation. Everybody's, trying to wrap up summer. And I was thinking about this today too. You remember when, I remember as a kid leading up to the end of summer, it was like those last few weeks where you're just so anxious, right? You're going to be a fifth grader now, or whatever it is, right? You're so excited for the next grade. You're going to meet some new friends. You get to see your friends again, right? And you're anxious to get back to school. You're anxious to get back at it. The same thing is going to happen for our markets. It's the same thing right now, where everybody's finishing up, enjoying the last bit of summer. And then as we go into September, that's when people are ready to get back to work. People are ready to get back to school. People are ready to take action. Okay, I can't just sit on my lawn chair in the backyard soaking up sun all day. I got to go make some money. I got to go make some moves, right? And so this, and for the hedge fund managers, it's stepping off the yacht, right? Or time at the second beach house is over. Now it's time to go back to the office and get back to work. So this is very typical, very normal. It's just our crypto market's so over leveraged, and that's why we have such big swings. For the novice traders, you'll get cleaned out. And for people who can't stomach those drawdowns, they are struggling to handle crypto investing right now. And if that's you, if you're new here, stick around because we break down these fundamentals. And, I would compare it to a gallon of milk, right? Or any other item or good, food or your favorite clothes, whatever it is that you like to buy, right? But I think a comparison to a gallon of milk's fair. A gallon of milk used to be $3. I mean, shoot, at the gas station the other day, I think I paid $6 or something. The corner store market in a pinch. And I always joke about with the guy behind the teller about the tax that they're hitting me on, little corner store. But anyways, you used to be able to get a gallon of milk for $3, right? And that's where XRP's at. Now the price drops down to 280. You wouldn't even think about it, right? When you're going to the grocery store and you see something on sale, boom, you're buying it. You don't even think about it. And if you're not thinking the same way about your investments, do you know what you hold? Serious question. Do you understand the fundamentals on what, behind what you're investing in? If you're not in a day trade, if you're not in a leveraged futures trade, like I am, right? I'm guilty of playing this game with the leverage and playing around, but I use low leverage. I can handle big margins, right? I haven't been liquidated yet while they've liquidated billions from our market. The market makers are hunting down me and hunting down many of you that are in these positions, right? But what you see here is they've already squeezed this out, and they always do this leading up to these events. Could we get one more big shakeup tomorrow as he speaks? Sure. But I think that most of this is passing. I really do. And what we saw here today on the chart, on the XRP chart, is kind of confirming, that we've probably seen the worst of it. I'll show you it in 1 second. Now, we talk about BlackRock and the ETFs and these institutions and how much money they bring into this space, right? You can take a look here. But we also got to remember that just as fast as the money can come in the form of inflows, it can also leave, right? So BlackRock dumping hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum. What is going on? What do they know? Maybe they know that an XRP ETF is coming up. Maybe they know it's time to get in place for their XRP ETF, right? Just like I started off the show on Tuesday with the Gretzky quote, I said, we're going to be moving to where the puck's going, not where it's been. Is that what BlackRock's doing right now? And it's a typical reshuffling too. BlackRock's one of those money managers where in August, they're going to be, cutting losses, moving different parts of their portfolio around. The broader stock market's been really correcting as well too. MicroStrategy and other companies have already entered bear market territory, right? Bitcoin topped out there at 124. Big pullback. Looks like we're starting to ready to, recover and rally back. And so that could happen on some of these stocks. But this is why, I can't imagine being in some of these stock plays because you bleed out, 26%, but the ability to gain back, that 20 or 30% in the stocks takes so much more than it does here in crypto. In crypto, yeah, we got, whatever we've pulled back from the top at $3.66. If you want to measure from there on XRP's all-time high to where we pull back here now, yeah, it's a good pullback, but we could very easily double up 100% between now and the ETFs going live. And that's why I'm so heavy into crypto, exclusively pretty much into crypto. I don't have any stocks in my portfolio right now. And I think that BlackRock, they're showing you, right? And we've seen even the shift from inflows into Bitcoin, and the inflows have now shifted more going into Ethereum ETFs. And this is the last gasp for Ethereum before we have a level playing field with Solana, XRP, HBAR, and other ETFs. Okay? Now, coming up here in October, which is the same time frame when the ETFs will be going live, Ripple is an official sponsor of DC FinTech Week 2025. Brad Garlinghouse will be speaking alongside some heavyweights such as Chris Brummer, Brian Brooks, and the SEC chair, Paul Atkins. That is lining up perfectly. Can you imagine if they go live with the ETFs right before they have this DC FinTech Week? We get Brad Garlinghouse on stage up there, Paul Atkins up there, as we have XRP, Solana, HBAR, ETFs all going live. Bonk Coin too, can't forget about the Bonk Bros. I wanted to share this meme too, Spiffy. He put this one together. He says, me onboarding my friends to the Joey wallet. But I just wanted to show this picture of Brad Garlinghouse and Sergey from Chainlink. This is the vibe that our community, that our crypto space should be in right now, right? We need to be getting along. We need to be smiling and having a good time. We've taken over DC. We've taken over financial markets in the entire industry. We're building out the new financial system. And yet some people want to get into tribalism. Now, don't get it wrong. I saw some people commenting. They said, oh, Zach treats these like they're football teams, these different cryptos. And, in a sense, yeah. And I actually responded to one person. I said, well, this is better than sports. We're actually creating generational wealth. We're making money, right? And obviously you can bet on sports too. I'm not as tapped in anymore on sports, so I don't do sports betting. If I'm going to be a degenerate, I go bet on an XRP meme coin. But I wanted to share this, please, we got to stop this, and I know the Bitcoin maxis don't watch my show, the Link Marines that are starting up their little cute campaign, right? It's just like, it's laughable to me at this point, because it's like, we know that Ripple's already tapped Chainlink for a partnership. For those of you guys that missed that's already been announced. I think that was earlier this year or last year. So Ripple and Chainlink will work together, and Chainlink's ready to be an Oracle provider for the XRP ledger, along with Flare and others. Chainlink's not the only game in town. And I could list off a bunch of other reasons for why I don't own Link, but I'm rooting for Link. It's been up over 130% since the election. It's not as much as XRP. So, I treat these like football teams. Okay, I mean, that's an immature way to look at it. To me, I'm looking at, we're making real investments, real money. I mean, just look at what we did on Zebek. Our community made millions on Zebek. To me, that's more exciting than, wow, we are rooting for our football team. Nothing against football and sports. It's cool. I love sports too. I'm just making the point. You know what I'm saying? These people want to believe that we're going to have a 2021 alt season again, where everybody gets rich, and everybody gets 5 baggers and 10 baggers and 100 baggers. That's not going to be the case this bull run. And the other thing too is we shouldn't hurt ourselves, shoot ourselves in the foot with all this tribalism. And the worst is the Bitcoin maxis. The Link Marines, it's laughable, it's silly, whatever. It'll pass, just like it always does, right? I've seen another, there's other campaigns. I'm not even going to mention some of these projects, right? And at this point in time, it's time for us all to come together. I'm rooting, and I said this, I'm rooting for an Ethereum all-time high. It'd be better for our space if Ethereum did break above 10,000. It's not going to, in my opinion. I think it's going to fall short, but I'm rooting for an all-time high. Right? That allows more liquidity to flow around. I've been rooting for Bitcoin, even though I've been saying I think that it tops out 120 to 150,000, but I'm rooting for it. If I'm wrong, Brad Garlinghouse predicted 200K. I don't know what some of these other guys predict. It's crazy numbers. That's great if it happens. I got to make my bet. And my bet is I don't own Bitcoin. I don't own Ethereum because I think that the upside's limited. But I'm rooting for them, to be clear. And I want our space to recognize that we're in the room now. There's no reason to be fighting. This silly drama, this tribal, all this and stuff. And what we're doing over here in the XRP world, we've always been the adults in the room. And we're choosing the high road. And I put out a tweet earlier today, and I just said, we don't need to be spending our energy on baseless FUD and these little tribalistic arguments and all this stuff, right? You got people that are still, obviously, the baseless FUD against XRP will never end, right? And, you can tell some people are having to lash out because there's been a lack of performance in their ROI in their project, right? And that's okay. We just got to accept that and move on. We call it rotation. Rotate the bags. You didn't hit it here, that's okay. You step aside and we try another one with real utility and real institutional adoption. But what happens here, my opinion, others' opinions, speculation, clickbait, hopium, either the rubber's going to be meeting the road and you're going to be getting traction for your project and for the token, or you're not. After the ETFs go live and that Clarity Act gets passed, there will be no more excuses for XRP, for Link, for anybody. There's no excuses for Bitcoin or Ethereum. They're fully live. The SEC decided to come out and say that Bitcoin and Ethereum weren't securities, give them a free pass. You guys know the whole story. So there's no excuses for Bitcoin or Ethereum. The lack of performance on Ethereum, I don't want to say anything bad. So I'm just going to say it's a bummer. It's a real bummer. And they have no excuse. Now, with XRP, I get it. We're tired of excuses. The good news, what's going to finally pass will be this SEC versus Ripple case finally being done, filed by the court clerk. Brad Garlinghouse is going to come put out a tweet, and everybody's going to know that it's officially over. And Brad Garlinghouse is going to start the roadshow. And I've been saying that Ripple's going to be the darling on Wall Street. I bet investment bankers are pounding down their door to help take Ripple public. Right? And what have you heard Sal Gaberte, the CEO of 2Cream, and others say about Ripple? That they are investment bankers. And that's the strength of position that Ripple's in, is we don't need to go public right now. All right? And Ripple is the biggest crypto treasury company. It's not even close. Saylor's company, not even close. And as Bitcoin continues to bleed out and go down, well, that margin gets even wider between Ripple's bags of XRP, which are far bigger than MicroStrategy's bags of Bitcoin. It's not even close. And that gap is about to get even bigger. And we're not talking about $1,000 XRP. We're talking about that gap gets ridiculous, just moving to $10. And we're going there, 100%. It's simple math, and we have historical data to show you, right? The ETFs, and that's exactly what I want to show you right now to finish off this update, folks. If you appreciate what we do on a daily basis for you, make sure that you are liking our content, helping us out by sharing it out far and wide. And let's remind folks, because sometimes we have short-term memory loss in the crypto space and we forget how some of these things have played out. This is Bitcoin. Now, what happened here on Bitcoin is the rally leading up to the ETFs. We're back here in October of 2023. Bitcoin goes up here from 26,000 to about 49,000. That's an 82% move. I mean, shoot, even if you measure from like this low, you got like a 95%. Basically, it doubled up from 25,000 to 50,000, essentially. But then it dropped 21% after the ETFs went live. Now, check out what happened for Ethereum. Ethereum only ran up 25% here. Let me give you a better perspective on this. This is the rally for Ethereum. ETFs are going live for Ethereum, guys. Pump it up. And they managed to squeeze out 25%. Pretty poor. And what happens next is a 40% drop. And so now we get to speculate on what XRP is going to do. And so what we can see is that Bitcoin and Ethereum both went up leading into the ETFs going live. Bitcoin doubled up 100%. Ethereum ran up 25%. Now, what we are watching right now is more demand for XRP than Ethereum. Will XRP have more demand than Bitcoin? That's the big hurdle to get over. And if we do, double digits is just the start, by the way. Will we beat Ethereum? Yes. I do believe that we will have a bigger rally than Ethereum did. And really, if you look, here recently on XRP, it's been, consolidating since January. But it's still up 400% since November. So you could maybe make the argument that we've already started to price in the ETFs going live, right? You could make the case that there's a little bit of that being priced in. But I still think that in the final moments, because just like we're seeing with the markets, thought that the Fed was 100% going to cut rates. Now it's down to 57%. And that might drop further until we eventually don't get the rate cut, right? In the same fashion, people are late. They're not investing in XRP. They're waiting for the case to be over. That's a mistake. Right? They're not investing in XRP till they realize, oh, wait, these ETFs really are going to go live in the next month, in the next few weeks, in the coming days. And that's where you get that blow off top right before Bitcoin ETFs, right before Ethereum ETFs. And it was a buy the rumor, sell the news. I think that we get the exact same thing taking place for XRP. It's going to be somewhere in between what Bitcoin and Ethereum did. Maybe more than what Bitcoin did, because it's a much smaller and easier asset to move. So we move to the XRP chart, and we're zoomed out. And let me zoom in. If you guys haven't already, please make sure that we like this video. If you're new here, let's subscribe. Okay. Here we are. So we are perfectly set up here. And we have a date right here, September 7th. I'm watching this one. By September 7th, I have had to lower my targets, right? And so now I'm waiting for a $4 to $5 XRP to come in by September 7th. But we could still see a little bit more downward action for the next couple days. But then I am expecting a reversal to the upside leading into the September 7th date. And then September 17th is the next Fed interest rate decision. So between now and then, that is when I would be expecting us to rally. And 100% from our current levels takes us right up to below $6, right? If we were to only do, $4 to $5, maybe let's just say 450, right? That's a 61% move from here. But if you were to measure from our June 22nd low, which was down here at, basically we went back down to $1.91, right? That's a 138% move, which is probably more comparable to the run-ups that we had, because that was a 2.5 month period before the Bitcoin ETFs went live. If I go back and show you once again on the Bitcoin ETFs, you had a run up here that was from October to January. So over that period of a few months, you got that 100% rally. Now we flip back here to XRP. I got to readjust my chart because XRP pumped so much. It takes me a second to readjust this thing, right? But we're perfectly lined up here for XRP to move into that $4 to $5 territory. So yeah, I missed my purple box and I am lowering my targets. I don't think that we see the $7 to $8 XRP. And we, at one point, we even thought that we might have enough juice to push up towards 15. I have lowered my targets. Right? I have adjusted. I have new information in front of me. And so we had to lower the targets. We had to adjust them. And so now what I'm looking for is about a 450, 460. Let's see what we can do, over $4 for XRP between now and September 7th. But wait, Zach, the ETFs go live in October. Exactly. Right? We won't be done. This will be a little bit of a sell-off maybe as, the market starts to, and we won't have as much of a sell-off either if the market already realizes that we're not going to get rate cuts, right? That sell-off is kind of happening right now here at the end of August. We're still a month away from the decision and we're already selling off based off expectations that maybe the Fed's not going to cut rates. If it looks more likely as we get closer, then that already gets priced in. So that pullback might not be very deep. And then we continue to the upside leading into October. And so for my timelines and targets right now, it's a $4 to $5 XRP by September 7th. And then I'm looking for the $7 XRP minimum to be coming in by the time the ETFs go live. And I think that that comes in October. It's interesting that the DC FinTech week is going to be October 14th through 17th. So it would be perfect timing to see those ETFs go live right before that DC FinTech week and they all get together. We'll be watching that one very closely. To wrap up the episode here tonight, let me pull up this super chat right here from E York. E York, thank you. Shout out to you, Zach. You're running the best XRP channel right now. It feels like a real conversation instead of hope and fears that people sell. Please keep it rolling. And that's why I came live here tonight. I was thinking about, okay, maybe I'll just take tonight off. Didn't work out. Not a big deal, right? We'll update folks tomorrow. But the reason why I come here is because I want to show my face. I want to show my conviction on a day when we have a pullback, when we see something on the chart that maybe I don't necessarily like, but we need to accept it, acknowledge it, and we adjust. And I'm willing to admit when we're wrong. I'm telling you that we've had to lower and adjust our targets, but the targets, if we're still on that path and it's looking like we are, the upside is still pretty tremendous. And it's still a very safe bet because, by the way, we're not done in October either, right? So $4 to $5 by, beginning of September, $7 probably coming in before the ETFs go live into October. Little buy the rumor, sell the news. We saw Bitcoin sell off 30%, Ethereum sold off 40% after their ETFs went live. So XRP, it'd probably sell off 20, 30%, easily could, maybe more. What happens next? Consistent inflows take XRP to double digits. It's just simple math. Based off of the conservative assumptions from JP Morgan, which are probably too conservative in my opinion, If you see 5 to 10, maybe 20 billion of inflows into XRP, and that's not crazy to say within the first year, because we've seen that on Bitcoin, we've seen it on Ethereum. And like I said, I think that the XRP ETFs and the run up for XRP is going to be somewhere between the performance of Bitcoin and Ethereum. From an inflow perspective, is what I meant to say. From an inflow perspective, I think we get somewhere between what Bitcoin's seen and what Ethereum's seen. We will definitely, I think, have more inflows than Ethereum. I strongly believe that. So based off of that alone, you're looking at XRP going to double digits by next year. And like I said earlier, by May, we should have 4 Fed governors that have been selected by President Trump. So by next year, we're also flipping the Fed. By Thanksgiving or Christmas, we have the Clarity Act. By October, we have ETFs. By October or November, Ripple has heard back from the OCC to become a chartered bank, trust bank. And then in the meantime, between now and the middle of September, September 17th, when the Fed makes their next decision, we price in rate cuts, right? We finish off August, which is typically a slowdown month where you consolidate, chop sideways, or maybe even overreact to bad news, which that's exactly what we've done. It's very typical to overreact to bad news in August because volumes are already down. And typically it's a great time for people to make final fiscal year decisions, depending on their fiscal year, and portfolio reallocation and rotation. So just no loss of conviction. Everything is still lined up and looking really good over here for XRP and its structure. A couple other super chats came in here from Dennis. Can't compare ETFs of Bitcoin and ETH with 17 XRP ETFs. Price multiplier with 17 XRP way bigger than a few of the others. XRP futures breaking records, and it's true, Dennis. It's very true. And so if you get all of those ETFs going live, right, you're going to have dozens of options, and that's just in the United States. We've already seen ETFs live in Canada, Europe, other jurisdictions. I mean, for crying out loud, we don't even have a tokenized Japanese yen yet, and they finally said that they're going to be doing so, and they chose like Avalanche, Polygon, and Ethereum or something to tokenize the yen on. They're going to bring it to somebody will. Either Ripple, SBI Holdings, or somebody, Bank of Japan even, is going to partner up with somebody will bring tokenized Japanese yen, right? So the tokenization of all these stable coins on chain too adds another couple trillion of tokenization to our markets as well. And what drives price is going to be the volume and the trading of all these assets. One more thing on the ETFs I wanted to say, because of the injunction being in place, I actually believe that Ripple won't be able to sell XRP directly to these fund managers of the ETFs, right? Because the judge ruled that sales to institutions would be a securities offering, an investment contract. So since the injunction is still in place, it looks to me, from my understanding, I'm not a legal expert, and I'm probably going to run this by a couple other lawyers that I know, but from everything that I've read, in my understanding, with that injunction being in place, I've been saying how the injunction is going to be irrelevant as far as Ripple selling to institutional partners because they've already changed how those contracts are. But the difference is these would be sales to the fund managers for an ETF. And so that gets into a different, a different type of transaction there. And this is where I think that the injunction actually is going to force these institutions that are going to set up the ETFs to have to go buy supply off the exchanges. Now, Ripple obviously can put the exchanges as the middlemen, and they could still sell off a lot of XRP to the exchanges that would then be turned around and sold to these institutions for the ETFs. But the point being, the supply has to come from somewhere. And Ripple can choose to either restrict or open that up. And that's really the only big what if for me, right? Conservative assumptions and simple math take us to double digits based off of what we should get in inflows. The only thing that could really mess this up, and Ripple does not have the incentive to do this, and this is why I don't think that they will, and with the injunction in place, I don't even know if they could sell directly to these fund managers for the ETFs. Right? Now, maybe they already have, and then that would be the great unveiling of all the NDAs and pre-allocation contracts, is BlackRock launches the XRP ETF, and oh, hey, look, We already have 5 billion XRP, right? You know, this is going to be the last question that remains for me is how will these ETFs get their XRP? And if they're having to go through the centralized exchanges, it's going to force a supply shock most likely, especially if Ripple continues to conduct the treasury flows as they have been. They're not divvying up enough XRP, I think, to eat up this supply. So we'll be watching to see how Ripple manages that, but it's looking really good. Charles Vidal Jr., thank you for the 5 spot. Hey, Zach, you are the man. Can you give us your take on the XRP ledger being rated the least secure by Zaco? Yeah, I was looking into that firm. Looks like they got their biases. Yeah, I really wouldn't put too much on that one. I was looking into it. They cited a hack or a compromise in our GitHub repository, which to most people, you don't even need to worry about this. And I'm not going to explain the technicals of really what this was, but it wasn't even an issue that impacted our mainnet XRP ledger. And so it's like they cherry picked some little issue that was on GitHub that it was a vulnerability, but nobody lost money or got exposed. When you look at all these other chains, there's real hacks, there's real exposure, there's smart contracts getting busted up. None of that's happening on the XRP ledger, right? And so I wouldn't put too much on that one. I think it was clickbait. I think that it was done by people that have an agenda to FUD XRP. And I just say that because if you actually go look into what the report said, they cherry picked a data point that really was irrelevant. Nobody got exploited. It never actually hit our public XRP ledger. Right? It was this could be an issue. Well, shoot, if you went through what could be an issue for every chain, you're going to find dozens of potential problems, right? And so I didn't think that it was a serious deal. And then the way that the media, the crypto tabloid media, the crypto clickbait crap media picked up on it and ran with it and spread it, it gave me all the red flags and signals that it was put out by those with an agenda to FUD XRP. And if you just look at the technicalities of what they pointed out, it's just baseless, heavily skewed, and you can tell there's a bias there. I wouldn't put anything behind it. And I'm not saying that just because I don't accept, anybody that says something bad about XRP. I actually went and read the report, which most people didn't do because all that people saw was the clickbait articles from the crypto crap tabloids. I'm just being honest, right? Now, Dennis says injunction makes price higher, recorded on exchanges. Yeah, exactly. If we can't see Ripple selling the XRP directly to these institutions for the ETFs, they're going to have to go to the centralized exchanges. And although these transactions could happen OTC, you still have supply shock taking place. Yeah. John, thank you for the 5 spot. XRP received its low score from research firm Kaiko's latest blockchain ranking. Is that concerning to you? They gave it a score of 41. Yeah, John, I appreciate the comment there. I did just answer the question. Like I said, this is just typical XRP FUD from what I was able to gather. I'm not a developer, and so I can't explain all the intricacies and nuance of what the exploit was, other than I know that it actually never did impact mainnet XRP ledger. It was just an issue with GitHub repository that never impacted anybody, never impacted any validators, nothing. So there wasn't a problem there. Other things that they point out is a lack of centralization, and they try to say, that there's kind of like a group of chosen validators. Well, yeah, that's the whole point, is that anybody can create a UNL. Anybody can choose which validators they want to transact with and come to consensus with. And we've determined we got our 35 validators. Some are good, some are active, some are not. And so not all of them are great, but the ones that we got are great. We speak with the validators. Right? I've now met Vet at XRP Las Vegas, right? And so we're talking to these guys. I've talked with Daniel from Casino Coin. He runs a validator, right? Daniel, he talks crap about Ripple all the time. Daniel, he's not down for, XRP pump up. He's really not into it. In fact, I think that I gave him his first XRP. I lost the bet with Daniel, and I bet him 100 XRP that XRP was going to go to some price by a certain point, and it didn't. And so I did lose that bet, and I did give him 100 XRP. But that's one of our validators. Like, these are people that don't just bow down to Ripple at all. And Ripple only runs one of the validators. So when you go through the report, you know, I could go through point by point and break each one down. And maybe I should do so in another show just to ease everybody's concerns. It would be a good example to show you guys how, you know, these reports will come out and then the clickbait crap media will just take and run with it and put out their spin. And that right there is usually the tell that that's FUD agenda derived from somebody who wants to FUD XRP. Final one for the night, and then I'm going to wrap up here. I appreciate E. York for coming in with another 10 spot. Thank you, sir. Zach, serious question. What percentage should people sell at the end of the bull run and live with it? Prepare for the next 4-year cycle? My thought is 33%. There's no way to answer that question generally. One, I can't give financial advice, and two, everybody's in a different situation. Some people have 1 million XRP and they need to sell every token that they have. Some people, you know, have a few thousand XRP. You're not going to be able to sell XRP at a level that's really going to do, you know, be life-changing, right? Unless you have significant amounts of XRP. So everybody's in a different position. There's really no way to answer that question other than here's what I will say. As I've said before, I do believe that we get a strong 50% pullback after we hit the top, wherever that top is, whenever that top comes in. If that top comes in October, if it comes in November, December, January, if the top doesn't come until later next year, you know, the inflows from the ETFs take some time and we don't go to a $20 or $30 XRP till next year. Whatever that top comes in at, I'm expecting a 50% pullback. So I'll just tell you that much. And then it's up to you to understand your portfolio, your positioning, your risk management, and your tolerance, your time horizon, and make your decision. Roman, I don't want to miss your super chat there too. Thank you. Do you think that when we moon, we will retrace back 70 to 90%, or is it better to just hold long term around 2030? Well, I appreciate the chat. I just answered that question as well too. Wherever the top ends, whenever it comes, I do think that we still get a 50% pullback. Now, XRP, speaking of pullback, is on sale right now, $282. We want to hold this. I really want to see us hold this. This is concerning because we do not want to break this. We went down to 281 yesterday. Right now we're at 282. We do not want to break below. This was a higher low that we printed yesterday. Holds our structure good. But I want to remind everybody that even if we do break down here, you actually still are in bullish structure to move to the upside. So I am ready to actually buy back in. I added to my XRP long position at 291 a couple days ago. And then the next level that I've been waiting to come in is between 270 and 275. Right in that area, that 272 low that we hit. If we go back to there, I'll be adding further to my XRP long with 100% conviction. Just like I said at the start of this update, absolute conviction on where this asset's going. It's just a matter of, you know, are we talking about XRP topping out this cycle at 10 to 15 bucks, or does it really have the juice to extend up to 20 to 30 bucks next year like I think it does? That's where I'm placing my bet, right? But I do have my targets. I will be selling some XRP, and I will be selling a lot of my altcoins along the way when my targets get hit, okay? Because there are some assets like XLM. I'll just let you guys know this. XLM doesn't have any ETF filings for XLM in the United States right now. Big concern. We want to see institutional adoption and partners, and we want to see inflows from said institutions and ETFs. The fact that there's no XLM filing, big concern. And I know some people people just pull numbers out of there, you know what, for XLM and XRP and others, saying that it's just, you know, going to go to wherever. Where's the money going to come from? That's the question. I love XLM. It's a big part of my portfolio. But I have pretty conservative targets on it right now, and I still do, because I've seen a lack of institutional adoption and partnerships, like I see with Ripple, and I've seen no ETF filing. Big concern. And if you're holding a crypto that's in the same position, you probably should be even more worried, because at least XLM is riding on the coattails of XRP. XLM will probably still pump even though it doesn't have an ETF. just because Jed McCaleb and the Stellar Secret Society, I can't talk about that. The Stellar Secret Society, they'll find a way to pump it up a little bit. But I'm going to end on that happy note. We respect the pump. No matter what the coin, we respect it. We love it. And may the pump be with you. Take advantage of this correction if you need to. Absolutely. I'm getting ready to myself. We'll watch Jerome Powell speak tomorrow. And it looks like President Trump is going to do what he's been doing. He's going to take the thunder away from Jerome Powell by giving his speech tomorrow at noon Eastern. So we'll be tuning into that. We'll be watching Jerome Powell. Make sure you guys come back tomorrow for the full update. I appreciate